What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, this whole weekend, it felt like it was a month long. That's how many things happened around the world and in the world of sports, and especially in the NBA. How are you doing today?
Good. It's this weekend felt like 2 months to me, man, because what's going on here. Wasn't supposed to be out in LA. That wasn't the plan, and then of course the trade goes down. We want to try to get Luka's first game, so I was honored to be able to be asked to come out here with Dave Passion, and he doesn't play. Luka doesn't play Saturday, and then they make the decision. ESPN again moves heaven and earth for Monday night tonight, to hopefully catch Luka, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, he's going to play tonight. But so I ended up spending the whole weekend in LA, and I wasn't even supposed to come out here at all. So, it's been a long weekend. It'll all be worth it if we get a chance to at least witness history tonight, and be on the call for that, because it is an historic moment what we're about to watch, and this next era of Laker basketball and what that's going to look like.
Well, it felt like a weekend of historic moments in the NBA, and that's why we have a ton of stuff to get to. We're going to talk about a trade that wasn't for the Lakers. We're going to talk about Chet Holmgren's return to Oklahoma City, the Rockets sliding, Embiid needing surgery, Hubie Brown retires, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the Warriors and the Jimmy Butler debut, as well as a very good game between San Antonio and the Orlando Magic. But first, let's get into some layup lines, shall we? Let's get some layup lines going, and I'll start our layup lines by reminding you what we have coming up tomorrow. We had to move it. Because Legs had a schedule adjustment being in LA for the Lakers game, we're moving our playback to tomorrow night. So tomorrow, Tuesday, there's some good games on the slate. We're going to be live from 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live for 2 hours doing a red zone style, Manning cast type of watch along. We'll have some guests pop in. And what's really cool is we have a ton of free League Pass codes to give away if you join that stream. So hop in that stream. You get to watch the games with us, hear our commentary, provide some questions, some different things, and you can get free League Pass. So sign up right now at playback.tv/all-NBA. It's going to be a good time. First, let's start with the trade that wasn't. Mark Williams traded for 2 picks, or a pick swap and a first, as well as Dalton Knecht. And it was an exciting deal. People were talking about, okay, there's the lob threat. The Lakers didn't have one. And then word came out suddenly and abruptly that the trade had been rescinded, not because of Mark Williams' back, but because of other concerns, other injury concerns, multiple other issues, quote unquote. So the trade deadline is passed. The trade is off. You got to welcome Dalton Knecht back, but you don't have a lob threat. What do you make of this story, Legs?
Super strange. When we're over there Saturday and talking to the Lakers before the game, it was kind of like this hush-hush thing. Like no one's had any comment on the trade, because we were excited. We actually had prepared, to talk about him in the broadcast, whether he played or not that night. We were going to obviously be talking about him and Luka, these 2 additions to the team, what that's going to look like. I was all prepared to talk about this lob threat that Luka's used to playing with, and I thought that had a lot to do with why they got him. That's what he knows that position to be. Luka loves the lob threat. It sets up a lot of what he does with his own scoring game and with his ability to kick out the shooters. That guy diving to the rim and occupying people for the lob, like it's a major part of what Luka Doncic does as a playmaker. So I was ready to go there, and then I could tell like no one wanted to talk about it from the Lakers' perspective, and it was still pending. Like all the way through the game, it was still pending. So we didn't talk about it a whole lot on the broadcast. And then of course you get the news, and I'll be honest, man. I've heard trades get rescinded over the years because of health. Happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it quite phrased the way this one was. Multiple issues. I'm like, wait a second. You would expect to find that in like, an 82-year-old man. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's some things going on here with his hip and like different things. Like this guy's like a young, bouncy center that just had 2 monster games like that week leading up to the trading deadline. And they're saying like, literally, like, we can't touch this guy. There's too much going on here. So the trade gets rescinded. Obviously, a lot more information has to come out about this. I don't know how much when we go over to the arena today to get ready for this game tonight, how much they're going to be willing to tell us. I mean, I don't know if JJ is going to be able to say very much. I'll probably see Rob Pelinka. I don't know if he's going to say very much. Part of that is going to be to protect Mark Williams as well, probably. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's going to be up to the teams to kind of further comment on this, or otherwise, how are you going to know what they're talking about? But the bottom line, any way you slice it, it's a very awkward, bizarre situation for these teams to welcome these players back and see where we go from here. And then the biggest issue, of course, is the Lakers didn't address their need for a big. Right. So what are you going with? Jackson Hayes and Koloko? I mean, that's what you're going to go with now the rest of the year. Probably play some smaller lineups, obviously. And look, with LeBron and Luka and Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith and Austin Reeves, you got some versatility there. But defensively and on the glass against certain teams, Oklahoma City, Denver, like you're going to need some even a team like Memphis that is just attacking the paint all night long. You look at Houston, like you look at with Şengün, you look at these teams with the size and the skill that they have up front. Lakers didn't address that now, and so that's going to be the biggest void for them. And we're going to have to just wait and see and get a sample size with this group and see how much that affects them on a nightly basis.
I talked to a league executive on Friday or Saturday just asking about the Mark Williams trade, and the note they said was, it's a lot to give up for a guy that I'm not sure will ever play consistently, meaning Mark Williams is a guy that they knew, the intel they had, not part of either of these two teams, was that his medicals were really bad. And if they know that, I mean, Dave McMenamin had this in a story on ESPN over the weekend. Teams do their due diligence and know about players before a trade, and then you do the medicals, you do all that stuff afterwards, but it's very rare for a team not to know or have a hunch about what's going on going into the deal. So, as I said, one league executive said, hey, look, if he plays, great deal, but I just don't think he's ever going to play. And then, of course, we get into it, and now he's not there. So, puts him in a tough spot this year. You mentioned Jackson Hayes. He is an athletic guy. I do think that Luka will make him look good. LeBron will make him look good. But to your point, he's very limited on the defensive end, and I'm not sure he's going to be as impactful as a lob threat as you would be hoping for. If I can have you put yourself into Dalton Knecht's shoes, though, because part of this trade was all the reporters around the Lakers come out. No, the team was worried he might be a little soft. He might, he wasn't quite getting it. Was he ready for this or that? And all of a sudden, now you have to bring him back. And it wasn't like the team said anything horrible, but you read the clippings if you're a player and you see what's being discussed. I think that this is going to be a difficult reunion of sorts for Dalton Knecht a little bit. But what do you think?
I agree. And I think even, he's had even in his short half a season, a little more than half a season as a rookie, it's been a roller coaster for him. Okay. Started out the year, I was like waiting for him to finally get some consistent burn because I thought, man, this guy can play now. Like he can really help you. The Lakers need spacing. Didn't play him much early, finally broke through. And I don't know, maybe 10 games in. And then he had a really, really, really good stretch for a while. And then before you know it, something happened. And because I'm not watching the Lakers every night. And then I'm like, wow, man, Dalton Knecht's not playing as much anymore. And he's not getting opportunities. Shot attempts were way down. And he went through that. And then he had a little short burst again with some good games. And then takes us up to the trading deadline. And now what I did see was, I saw a couple instances where JJ Redick was clearly expressing overt frustration with Dalton Knecht during the games, including the one right before the trading deadline when he was screaming at Dalton Knecht as he took a timeout. And he said, we're running your effing play. It's for you. And he's screaming at him because apparently Dalton Knecht, didn't run the play properly.
Yeah.
And he kind of put his palms up as he's walking to the bench, almost like, dude, relax. Like, the look on Dalton Knecht's face was like, okay. I think there was some frustration about competitive will and toughness with him defensively and also, IQ for the game. I think these were some things that seemed to be hanging in the air a little bit with him. So I don't know exactly how JJ Redick feels about him, but now he had this rough patch right before you traded him, and now he's coming back, and you've added another perimeter player, not just a perimeter player, one of the best players in the NBA to play perimeter minutes. So and Rui Hachimura is playing great. So you're going to have Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, obviously playing a ton of minutes. Rui Hachimura has been on an unbelievable role. Gabe Vincent's been playing great for them. Jared Vanderbilt is critical to get back with his defense. And right now, without AD, since they traded AD, Jared Vanderbilt is their second leading rebounder, and he plays 15 minutes a night. That's what
He
Jared
is a great
Vanderbilt is doing.
rebounder, though.
Yeah, man, he's averaging almost 7 boards a game in 15 minutes a night, and he's their second leading rebounder behind LeBron. So I just mentioned a bunch of guys that play on the perimeter for this team, and that's not even mentioning Dorian Finney-Smith. So now you look at Knecht and go, wow, now you got Luka coming in, gobbling up a ton of minutes on the perimeter. Everybody gets kind of pushed down a little bit. It extends your perimeter depth. What is the role now for Dalton Knecht going forward, man? The guy can play, and I think he's going to have a good career. I just don't know what his role and future is going to be here in Los Angeles, and this is going to be a very strange moment for him when he rejoins the team. And look, to be honest with you, I was never on a team where this happened. So I don't know what that's like to welcome the guy back in. And then, what, does Dalton Knecht play tonight? Does he just suit up like nothing happened? I mean, I don't know. It's a really bizarre situation, and we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. But I do think now there are legitimate concerns about ultimately what's his upside impact if there's just not a lot of opportunities to get minutes because of all these guys that JJ Redick's going to be playing the perimeter. And he's going to be playing smaller lineups more and more and more with the lack of depth in the middle. So you're going to see small lineups all the time. Maybe that, because they're playing 5 perimeter players for stretches of games, maybe that helps Dalton Knecht. I don't know. But then defensively, you need even more when you're playing smaller. So that's going to be a major consideration, for JJ Redick. Maybe more of those minutes go to Vanderbilt and Dorian Finney-Smith. Remains to be seen, man. Let's see how it plays out. But Dalton Knecht, you kind of feel bad for him. This has got to be a wild ride for a rookie going through something like this.
In more positive news, the Oklahoma City Thunder got Chet Holmgren back over the weekend on Friday. He made his return from injury against the Toronto Raptors in a 121-109 win for the Thunder. He played 22 minutes and was a plus 22. The numbers aren't crazy in the scoring and rebound department, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. But he did have 2 steals and 1 block, which is what he does. And like I said, a plus 22 in 22 minutes. He started for them. Sometimes guys will come back from injury, come off the bench. They just put him right in the starting lineup. What did you see from that? What do you make of that stat line?
Yeah, he looked great. I mean, to me, for the first game, just the way he was moving, and he had a couple plays at the rim that, again, it's amazing guys come back and they just so quickly remind you of what they do that's so special. His timing as a weak side defender, meeting guys at the rim, man, is as good as it gets. And it actually, led to an injury. He's a guy that is an absolute difference maker. Look, you saw a small sample size with Hartenstein, and that's gonna take time to work out how they want to play with those two guys paired together and complementing each other. Really can't take any conclusions off one game. I just was more interested in what's Chet look like in the way he's moving and his impact. And he had a very limited stat line. That's just going to continue to grow every night. But again, Oklahoma City, that was a very impressive game. I mean, they just absolutely mauled them, took it right to them, and I was impressed by it.
The Houston Rockets, on the other hand, have been in a tough go. They started 10 days ago to end January. They were the 2 seed. And since then, they have lost 6 straight before winning against Toronto on Sunday. But their 6 straight losses, including to Minnesota and Dallas, have placed them all the way down in the 4 seed. That Dallas game was obviously a high-profile one. This is so tough for the Rockets, man. They've been so good all year. We love watching them. We said they were our favorite team to watch. We love watching them against, all the great teams. But just one rough patch. This is what's tough for a young team. When you're at the top, you can be great for 4 straight months and then have a bad week and a half, and all of a sudden you slide this far. What do you make of their slide, and do you think they're going to stabilize here down the stretch?
They lost 6 straight. I mean, there's some good teams in there, or these difficult teams. At Memphis, there's no shame in that. Memphis really good chance of 1 point loss, and they gave that game away. They choked that game at the end. They had some really bad possessions and turnovers, and Memphis was able to steal that game. A loss at home against Brooklyn is a bad loss. You lose by 12. At New York by 6, again, right there in it to the end. At Brooklyn again by 2 in a game in which you are up 4 points with 7 seconds to go and the ball's being taken out of bounds. Just can't lose it. So again, horrible late game execution, a terrible turnover by Amen Thompson in that game, inbounding the ball cost them the game. And then at Minnesota, at Dallas, 2 tough places to play. They finally get a win against Toronto to at least stop the slide. Look, you're going to have not every team, because Oklahoma City is the exception. They've lost 2 games in a row once all year. It was the beginning of the year. So not every team goes through these kind of stretches, but just about. and the Houston Rockets went through it. And it's not souring me on it. They definitely have to figure out how to be smarter in late game situations and how they want to operate their offense, because it really hurt them during this stretch. You're right. The good point you made is that when teams are bunched together in the West, man, it's amazing how you can just play at the top of your game all year, capture everybody's imagination about how good you could be going down the road. And then you hit 1 6-game losing streak and you drop like 2 spots in the standings, and everybody's like questioning, what's going to happen to you. I'm not too worried about Houston. They've got the right coach, I think, to figure this out. And I think they will. I still ultimately love how they compete, how hard they challenge you every night. And they've got some guys on that team who are haven't even scratched the surface of how good they can be offensively. Not overly worried about them at all. Now tonight they've got Phoenix, and then they got Golden State back to back at home. Phoenix and Golden State, 2 teams that you've got to come and be ready to guard them because they can score. And, look, if Houston can win both of those games, they're going to feel a lot better about themselves going into the break.
Yeah. Conversely, if you lose one of those, or if you lose both of them, you're really struggling. And coming out of the break, you've got Minnesota. Utah should be an easy one, but Milwaukee, San Antonio, Sacramento, Oklahoma City, Indiana, right out of the break, they're going to be tested again. And the reason I bring it up is, look, everybody's going to have tougher schedules down the stretch. The NBA tries to, put really good games down the stretch. But the reason you put that up is you were a 2 seed. And if you fall below the 5 or 6 seed, psychologically, I just think that's a strain on you, where you go, what are we doing? We're fumbling this. So yeah. I am curious to see how they respond to that adversity, and just if they can keep their composure through this. They did get the win, against Toronto. So they have a little bit of a momentum, I guess, and a couple days off since they don't play till Wednesday. My last note here, Legs, is that Hubie Brown retires. He had to call his last game over the weekend. You're in color commentary now. You're doing it very regularly. Hubie Brown to me is one of the greats, because there's things I love about color commentary. I love when people have a passion for the game. He clearly does. He loves the game. He loves to teach the game. He's pointing things out, not just interesting observations, but it's like he's teaching. He wants you to learn. And obviously he's connected. Somebody said that he had called a game for, coached, or just been up against 80% of players to ever come through the NBA. That's insane. He might be the number one guy who's most connected to most of the NBA and NBA history. And he retires. I just wonder what you thought about him, because to me, he's one of my favorites.
Well, first, I want to say that I thought ESPN, ABC did an amazing job in honoring him in the way that they went about that broadcast, because look, there's still a game going on, and it's Philly and Milwaukee, and there's a lot of big names on the court. But I thought that they gave the appropriate amount of attention to the game, and then also ways that they found to honor Hubie, different guys he's called games with, zooming in throughout the game. Mike Tirico and Mark Jones and Dave Pasch was pretty amazing. Some of the players that came over to him, the referees, that was actually a great line when the refs came over, presented the game ball, and he said he got more technicals than anybody in the league when he was coaching, and I can't believe he got a gift from the officials. I thought that was really funny. I thought they honored him appropriately. They let him talk as long as he wanted to when the game ended. Mike Breen asked him one question, and I think Hubie, just what it all meant to him. I think Hubie talked for, I don't even know, man, 5-7 minutes straight, and they just let him go as long as he wanted to go. He deserved that. You're right. I saw that stat too. I couldn't believe it. It was really one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Coached against, with, or broadcast covering 80% of the players who have ever played in the NBA. Yeah. You think about that, man. Pretty incredible. So basically what you're saying is the only guys would be like young players on bad teams that we don't put on the air. Right. That's about it. Right. That's the only, because otherwise, he would have broadcast, even if he got in for 1 minute and he was calling the game, like that counts. So that's an amazing number. Yeah, man, I agree with you. He's a legend. He's an icon. He's a great guy to be around. He's a great storyteller. And by the way, the last component of this, he's been through a lot of personal tragedy here in recent years. He lost his wife, married to for 63 years. He has talked repeatedly about the loneliness around that and not having her. And then he also buried his son. When you live to be 91 years old, your children get older. So like there things can happen medically. This wasn't a young man, and he lost his son recently. And so he just talks about the loneliness of that and not having his family. here in this stage of his life. It's it shouldn't be that way. And so you think about that and his ability to still show up for this, prepared, do his job, talked about preparation being what you get paid to do. And that's why he's always done it that way. Great life lessons and some of the things that he said for any person in any walk of life and how you excel is the work ethic and the preparation and then just the commitment to it and wanting to be the best you can at it. And that's kind of what Hubie did as a coach and then as a broadcaster.
And the passion for me, because, I told you this when we started this show and I knew we were going to be partnering up. I went and watched all of Scott Van Pelt's interviews with you that I could find because I wanted to study him. He was one of the best of all time and I wanted to see. And he was so inquisitive, he gave space. Like there's little notes you take when you see somebody that's a master at their craft and you just try to study what makes them great. For Hubie, the thing for me is just always the passion. Like you and I love this game. And I think even analysts who love the game can sometimes fall into the trap of being too negative and this or that. And we want to give our honest, unfiltered opinions. But Hubie just had a way of always, whether he was critiquing or whatever, there was love that you could feel and passion. And it was like when somebody's passionate about anything, they can make you passionate about it for some small period. And to me, that's what Hubie brought to the game. I loved when he was on the calls. I've been listening to him my whole entire life, literally my entire life. So he's a legend and hopefully guys like you and everyone else in the game, follow in his footsteps and bring that same passion. Let's take our first break. On the other side, Jimmy Butler made his debut for the Golden State Warriors. And what a roller coaster of a game. They were blown out and then they were blowing out the Bulls all within the span of about 10 minutes. We're going to break down what happened on the other side. First, let me tell you guys about FanDuel, the presenting sponsor of our show. Right now, it is NBA season. The Super Bowl came and went. Hopefully, you won a little bit of money on the Super Bowl. I know I did, betting on the Eagles. I did not think it was going to be a blowout, but I did have them on the money line, so I won that one. But now it's NBA time, and if you want to make some futures, let me give you a rundown of what's going on in the NBA on FanDuel. Right now, the Boston Celtics are plus 195 to win the title. Pretty good odds. Oklahoma City is second at plus 230. The Cavs are all the way down at plus 850, the third best title odds. After that, you've got the Knicks, the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Grizzlies, the Bucks, and then the Clippers. I find that really fascinating, the order that they have them in. It makes sense. Celtics, makes sense. Thunder. Cavs are lower than I thought. I thought they should be a little bit higher with how they played. They make a great trade. So maybe that's where you really find the value. If you're a Knicks fan and filling the Knicks at plus 1,300, you can hop in there. But Denver being the second best odds in the West is also interesting to me. So this is the time of year where you can hop on and make a futures pick where the numbers are going to kind of shorten here between now and the end of the season. So hop in now and see if you can make a bet about who's going to win it all this year. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets when you download the app or head to FanDuel.com/AllNBA and bet with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner. Must be 21 and older in present select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-800-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Also want to tell you guys about our newest partner, Lucy. If you guys are into the nicotine pouch game, Lucy is a really good option, 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free. Lucy breakers are nicotine pouches with an extra surprise. Each pouch holds a capsule that can be broken open to release extra flavor and hydration. Set yourself up with a subscription and have it delivered straight to your door. They have all kinds of really good flavors. They also have it in 4, 8, and 12 milligram options. I think 12 milligrams is quite a bit for, that's kind of on the high end. So I know not everybody does that. Lucy does. Level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.com/allNBA and use promo code allNBA to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Again, that's lucy.co and use code allNBA to get 20% off. All right, back here, segment 2 with myself and Tim Legler. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and if you want to join us tomorrow on Playback, go to playback.tv/allNBA. We're going to be doing a nice watch-along Manning cast style as we jump around teams. You're not going to want to miss. I promise you it's going to be a good time. All right, the Warriors get a win in Jimmy Butler's debut, 132-111 over the Bulls. They were down by as many as 24 in the third quarter. A couple notes here. Jimmy Butler was not cleared until after shoot-around, so it was reported after the game that he only knew 3 plays. He was learning their new terminology, and they just put in 3 basic plays for him, didn't get to do a walkthrough or anything, and he goes out. But they were down big, and they made a huge Warriors-esque, classic Warriors comeback with Steph Curry going for 24 points in the third quarter to go from down 24 to up 20 in short order. What did you make of this one, Legs?
Pretty incredible. They outscored him by 25 points in 8 minutes in the third quarter. Steph Curry went off during that stretch. He had 4 threes. He really got going, got some help sprinkled in other places. But yeah, it was one of those Steph runs that you just love, man. You know, you don't get as many of them as you used to. And so you just got to like love every second of that when he goes off like that. Here's my takeaway from this game and Jimmy Butler being there. Now, right off the bat, one thing you could see that he's going to give them, his ability to just be physical in the paint and be tough and earn trips to the line. They are 27th in the league in free throw attempts. And that's look, you have to have balance in this league with your 3-point shooting, your paint production, and getting to the line is another component that teams need. So they don't really have anybody that's a high volume free throw taker on their roster. Jimmy Butler comes in, he gets 13 free throw attempts, not knowing any of the offense. That's the kind of thing Jimmy Butler can do. You know, when in doubt, let me just be physical on my slashes and my cuts and ISOs and backing guys down, and like, let me just do that. You know, he hadn't shot 13 free throws since I looked it up. He hasn't shot 13 free throws in over 2 months. So obviously things got off the rails in Miami. He wasn't into it. He wasn't dialed in. So he wasn't going to have nights like that. But he hadn't had 13 free throws since November 26th. And he's only done it 3 or 4 times this year. He's going to be doing this more for Golden State because he's obviously got something to prove. He's taken a lot of hits with how it ended in Miami. He's motivated right now, and he's going to add a dimension to their team without necessarily being a typical Golden State Warriors offensive prototype type guy. He's going to be able to do his own thing. They brought him in to do that, and he did it. And he got to the line on a night when he didn't shoot a ton, but he ends up with 25 points in limited minutes because of his ability to get to the line. And they just don't have anybody else on their roster that can generate that. And it's important for them to help set up their defense, just to get free points. It's just another way to attack. It puts teams in the bonus, which makes it harder to guard Steph on the perimeter. So that that ability to draw fouls is really important. And I think, to me, that and just his overall like edgy toughness that he can play with when he wants to, when he's dialed in, that's something that Golden State really needed. And obviously, you know, the Bulls aren't a great team. They're going through a transition now too, and Golden State took advantage of it with that big run. But I thought Jimmy Butler was able to imprint that game despite the fact he didn't have any familiarity really with how they run their offense.
You mentioned the toughness and physicality. The third quarter was all Steph. I mean, the team played well together, but Steph Curry just was having one of those quarters, as you mentioned, where he was making some really tough, demoralizing shots that it was really a fun. If you like watching Steph, it was a fun run to watch. But the stretch that was equally as impressive to me was the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter when Steph was off the floor. And by the way, Jimmy Butler being there in some ways, I think, is going to allow Steph Curry to play the entire third, because then he can rest 5 minutes. You can trust him to not be out on the court to start the fourth quarter. So it allows him to catch a rhythm as opposed to bringing him out halfway through, bringing him in again. So that's the first part. But the second part was you go with Draymond and Jimmy Butler. You go with Pods and Hield. So you have a couple offense, two just dogs on defense, and they just beat the heck out of the Bulls in that stretch without Steph on the court. I can't remember what the exact run was, but they did it with just steals and aggressive defense, stop after stop after stop, and running off of those stops. And then that was where he was getting to the line a lot, because you're playing against the scrambled defense. He's in control. He's just getting guys in the air, getting the extra contact, and finishing a bunch of and ones. But the defense to start the fourth quarter, to me, if you're a Warriors fan and you're optimistic about the trade, that's the section right there that you look at and say, that's who they're going to be in short order, because two insane defenders on the court together covers a lot of ground.
It's a good point, and I'll put the numbers to it. So you talked about the fourth. They're down 3. I mean, they're up 3 going into the fourth quarter. They made the big run in the third. They're up 3. Curry's on the bench to start the quarter. When Curry checked into the game 5 minutes later, they're up 17. So, and it's been the opposite
crazy.
for Steph Curry with the last couple of years coming out. And that's the thing. Kerr was always kind of weighing that. Steph historically has always substituted differently than other star players. Most stars in this league play the first 8 or 9 minutes typically of the game, maybe 10. You could stretch it to 10. They usually come out with a couple minutes to go, at least in the first quarter, and then they'll sit for the first 3, maybe 4 minutes of the second quarter. They do the same thing in the second half, and that's almost across the league. Very few star players play the entire first quarter, unless it's that rare night where you're just on fire and they just want to ride it. Curry has always liked playing the entire first quarter and the entire third quarter, even going back to their glory days and their winning championships. That's when Steph Curry, and I used to sit there some nights and watch their team in the fourth quarter and watch Steph Curry on the bench for the first 5 or 6 minutes. And I was just like, man, while the other team's making a run, and I'm like, Kerr's got some nerve to play it this way. But that was Steph's choice. He liked that. So they let him do it. But now when he's lost some firepower around him, more likely than not, he comes out of the game with a 3-point lead. There's a good chance he would be checking back in 5 minutes later, down 6, down 8.
Right.
And now putting so much pressure on him to figure out a way to make that up. Well, this isn't going to be every night. This was, that's a big run without him on the court. But the bottom line is Jimmy Butler was like, I got this. He got to the line 3 times during that stretch. He had a tip in, I think, during that stretch. And then some other guys made shots. Podziemski made a 3. Quentin Post made a 3. So other guys chipped in, but it was really about their defense and then Jimmy Butler orchestrating the offense. Run it through me. I'll make sure we get quality shots. And getting to the line is a big part of getting a quality shot. And it allowed Steph Curry to get his 5 minutes of rest and come back in with a comfortable lead. That's something he hasn't enjoyed very much of this year.
I'm curious what you think of this point that I really stood out to me in this game, because Jimmy Butler is a 2-foot jumper, and 2-foot jumpers, there's this hidden benefit to it. You could be more explosive off of one, going to the basket. You get off of one, you get up quick, and you can go. But 2-foot jumpers, it's easier to pivot out of a move. Like Jimmy does this a lot, where he'll make a move and he'll have a little bit of an advantage, but he won't feel it. I didn't get the guy off balance. I'm not going to get a clean shot. And rather than shoot, he'll just pivot out and make something happen, or pivot out and just reset the play or keep the possession going. And players like that, and when you have a system like the Warriors, you don't need heroes. Steph's your hero. You just need guys that maximize your chances in every possession. And he just had multiple plays where he'd drive to the basket, get himself into trouble, but be able to get out of it just to keep the ball popping. And I think that's a really good trait for a player that has his skill set, to be able to not have to commit. Once I'm going into the paint, I'm committed and I just have to do something. He can keep the possession alive, because the worst thing that happens to you when you're playing the Warriors is they hit a 3 off of a 23-second possession. The way he plays, I think there's going to be a lot of those, because if you don't have it, just keep it moving.
Yeah, and look, there were times in Miami, and make no mistake about it, the way what you're describing right now would frustrate me sometimes with Jimmy Butler, because he would drive, it looked like an obvious scoring attempt. Like he had an angle on the defender, he's into the lane, the help side guy's not quite there, and you're just like expecting him to jump, go toward the rim, and like try to get a layup with contact, or shoot a little, lean back 10-footer. How many times, like in Miami, he'd come into the lane and you're expecting that action, all of a sudden jump stop, and then he wouldn't shoot, and he'd pivot out and kick it back out. You're right. It is something that's kind of unique to him and what he's seeing, and it's like I'm seeing something different when I'm watching him sometimes. But I think on this team, that could lead to some real consequences for the defense, because your inclination is to kind of collapse the lane when that happens, and that's when a guy like Curry is running around and relocating to the next spot. And by the way, nobody in this league has ever been better at screening away from the ball in those situations to free up somebody like Steph Curry than Draymond Green. So when Jimmy's on the floor and he does that, where he kind of makes a drive, gets into the lane, comes to that big 2-footed jump stop, and you'll see the defense, your head naturally turns to find the ball in the lane. That's when you're going to see some of this late action that you're talking about, where then Draymond will be calling Curry over and like set that flare screen, and now Jimmy will kick it out to the corner for Steph, who continued to move. It's definitely something that's going to be interesting to watch. I'm really glad that I'm going to see those guys Wednesday night in Dallas, and I'm glad I'm going to get to see them so early in this with Jimmy Butler and see what I look at tangibly, like in front of me, like on and off the ball with Jimmy, and the differences for their team. Because I don't know that everybody was in love with this move for the Warriors. Right. Time will tell, but he gave them something in at least this first game. He definitely gave them something that they have lacked with his ability to draw contact and get easy points.
I'm such a believer in IQ, athleticism, which I don't know if they're going to have the requisite athleticism, but I'm a believer in IQ, athleticism, and passing. Those three things. He provides 2 out of 3 of those, an injection of 2 out of the 3 of those things, passing and IQ. And in fact, after the game, this is what Steve Kerr had to say. He said, I'm most impressed with his passing. His passing changes everything. The skill, the strength, the agility to get to the free throw line, but it's his passing. And I agree in that system. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Just the more passers you could put on. Steph is so good at running around. Draymond's so good at screening that the more passers you have, the more opportunities you're going to have to hit him there. So that to me is what stood out over the course of that run. Even though he didn't do the plays, he cut into other people's space a few times. That was a little clunky. I think they'll iron that out. But just having an extra passer to me is an underrated aspect of building a great team.
Totally agree, man. Look, first early look. All these trades went down. A lot of guys changed teams, man. You get your first early look at it. You have your own idea. This is the way all trades are evaluated. I think there's like really 4 stages to it. There's the initial immediate reaction phase for all of us. What's your initial thoughts? How do you think this is going to look? Who got the better of the deal? What do you think of this for each team? Like, that's the initial reaction before anything's even happened. No one's even played yet. That's 1. 2 is your first early taste. And then you have a reaction. When you first look at, that's interesting. He did this. He did whatever it may be. AD in Dallas, Jimmy Butler with Golden State, whatever, Luka maybe tonight, whatever it is, right? Then there's like the longer term view of it by the time you've seen 30, 40 games. And then the final stage is like 20 years from now, looking back on the trade, right? Because that's really all that matters is the long-term impact. We can all have our opinions on what you would have done, what I would have done, good move, bad move, what's it going to look like? The bottom line is time is the only thing that answers all that. You've got to see a sample size of what it looks like. By the way, also, like, even over the summer, maybe there's another move made by some of these teams. So that's the final version of judging it. But the first look for Golden State was a good one for what Jimmy Butler added to their team. So I was impressed with his debut, and I knew it. I knew he'd come in super motivated, man. He was getting crushed by what transpired in Miami and his actions, and it in a lot of ways kind of quit on his team. And so that's a lot of baggage you're taking with you to the next spot. And this is what Jimmy does. And he's super motivated early. And it's great because he definitely can play and he brings something to your team. And that's what he did the other night. Now let's see over the course of the rest of this season. And now the guy's got an extension to boot. So he looks like he's going to be there for a bit.
I have one more point on this game and on Jimmy in particular, and it comes from Draymond Green. After the game, because they make a big comeback in this one, and after the game, he says, at no point what is ever like, body language dropping. That's kind of what you've seen this year. We get down, it's kind of like snake-bitten mentality, and it was the total opposite tonight, which is why we came back no problem. I feel like this is kind of an underrated thing too. Teams, and I've seen it before across the NBA, teams can get the mentality of, man, it's not our year. Everything's going wrong, this or that. And that can snowball. That negative energy for a team can be real, whether it comes from the coach, the front office, ownership, or the players on the court. And I do agree that Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, those are 3 guys I just know will not give up. They'll keep fighting. And I think the team needed an injection of that.
The one thing I'll say about Jimmy Butler, and there's been times throughout his career, man, I got very frustrated with him and criticized him and not my cup of tea for some of his actions. And you look at the way everything's ended, every place he's been. I will say this about him. Jimmy Butler doesn't have any problem being on the court with like a better offensive player, a better teammate, somebody who gets more spotlight. He doesn't care about that stuff. And that's why I think his pairing with Steph is going to be good. He was very praiseworthy of Steph Curry after the game. and what it's like to play with him and getting out of his way and, making jokes about that. And that's the one thing about him. He's not going to make the offense or the touches or the numbers about him. That's not – now, there's other things that are about him. But that particular thing, just fitting in with other guys who are really good players, he's going to be okay with that. He knows he can go stretches in games when it's not his show. It's not his turn. This is Steph right now because he's going to be able to pick his spots when it's going to be more about him throughout the game and have his impact. So that absolutely is true about Jimmy Butler. And that's why I do think the pairing with Steph will be something that's going to work. I'm not worried about that.
Let's move on now to another game I know you wanted to talk about, which was the Orlando Magic hosting the San Antonio Spurs. The Magic had also been reeling. I mean, they have been unlike Houston. This one goes back over a month where they have been reeling, but they get a win against Sacramento. They lose to Denver, and they get a 1-point win, 112-111 over the San Antonio Spurs. I did not see this one, Legs, but I know you had some thoughts about it, and I'm curious what you saw.
Yeah, well, so look, Orlando's a team that we really loved last year, both of us. And they had really tough situation with these injuries this year to Banchero and Franz Wagner. And now they're both back. And it's going to take a little time. Banchero particularly has not really been himself. I think the guy's an absolute stud. And he didn't play particularly well in this game until he had to. And he was great down the stretch. And then that may be something to kickstart his game. And maybe the Orlando Magic now after the break, they start to get on a little bit of a roll and inject themselves into the mix in the East. Outside of Cleveland and Boston, we're all waiting on who, is that Milwaukee? Is that Indiana who played themselves into the 4 seed? I think Orlando's going to have something to say about that. The Knicks. Orlando's going to have something to say about that. But right now they've been in a tough rut because they haven't had the rhythm because those guys have been out. Banchero was great in this game. He had an incredibly difficult shot for the game winner in an isolation situation, man. Went to this really tough move where he came out of a fake half spin and then shot a fadeaway 20-footer, nothing but net. But then it was very bizarre what San Antonio did after that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this. So Orlando goes up 1. There is like 27 seconds or something on the clock. Spurs take timeout. They got the ball in the front court. They inbound the ball. You're down 1. Now, for me, you're not like in a 2-for-1 situation or anything, but don't you think you kind of want to go quicker to extend the game? It just gives you more opportunities. And you've got De'Aaron Fox. You've got Wembenyama, right? You've got guys now that you can run some quick action and get something probably quality with guys like that. And let's say you get a shot in the first 8 seconds. There's 19 seconds left in the game. If you miss, take the foul, you're extending the game, giving yourself more opportunities. They get the ball in. De'Aaron Fox takes the ball and dribbles out to half court and just stands there dribbling the basketball for over 10 seconds, unguarded, letting the clock run down. Then he calls Wemby up. He starts to go, and then the Magic had a foul to give. Anthony Black takes the foul. Okay, so they burned 12 seconds for no reason.
And
now
then
they go, and they weren't in the penalty yet. So now they go take the ball out. They get it back in, and then that time they showed obviously a little bit more urgency because you're under 10 seconds. They run a ball screen. They get it to Wemby at the top of the key. He catches the ball with 5 to 6 seconds left. He catches it. He jabs. 4, 3, 2, 1, and then fade away 20-footer top of the key. Misses it at basically the buzzer, and they lose the game by 1. It was a very bizarre end to that game for San Antonio offensively, and it goes against everything I believe in, which is if you're down 1 in that situation with that kind of time, give yourself an opportunity for an offensive rebound. Give yourself an opportunity to foul if you do miss, and then still maybe you need a 3 to tie it at that point with a lot of time left. I have no idea what San Antonio was doing at the end of that game. So that was the other big takeaway from that. And look, you got an interim coach going through this, you live and learn, but that's just not a way to manage 25 to 30 seconds of a game down 1 when you've got the basketball. I don't understand what they were trying to accomplish, and Orlando benefited from it, and they get a much-needed win, and more importantly, Banchero was great down the stretch, and that might kickstart his game.
I feel like we're talking about this a lot this year, more than last year. Don't you? I mean, we've had the Minnesota inbounds it in the backcourt, and they've got to sprint the ball up. We had Portland, I think, 2 games in a row have a weird late game inbound where they just set themselves up for failure. maybe it's anecdotal, but I just feel like we've had a lot of these this year where we're talking about late game situations where teammates obvious bad decisions to run the clock out or to put themselves in the backcourt with 3 seconds to get into the front court. So I don't know. Just feels like we have a bit of a run here going. Let me tell you, because I saw Paolo. I didn't watch this game, but I did see the Magic over last week against Denver. And I've thought this for a long time. And I love Franz Wagner. I just think he's such a great, smart player, does a lot of things. He's a connector. And I love Paolo Banchero's talent, but I worry Paolo Banchero is becoming the Carmelo. I knew he had an opportunity to become Carmelo, or he could become something different. And he is a great tough shot maker, but he seems to find himself in tough shots way more often than he needs to. So he hits the big one that you're talking about here. He's capable of doing it. It's part of his value. But it's almost like he prefers those shots. And so many of the shots he takes in the flow of the offense are 3-4 dribbles to get to the mid-range and turn around and fall away. And I'm thinking that's your last resort, not your first option. And as a result, he obviously had a hot start, gets injured, but as a result, he's got a lot of these 7 for 17 games under his belt. And I'm just curious what you make of it. Because to me, it's a meaningful weakness right now in his game that he doesn't create easy shots for himself.
I agree. Look, I agree. That's a fair analysis. I mean, I think that's a little bit harsh saying he's going to be the Carmelo Anthony of his time, of his generation. I thought that was a little bit harsh, a little bit much.
I mean, first ballot Hall of Famer? First ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah, but I mean, were you a fan of his game? Were you a fan of Melo's game? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I hear you. All right. I'd love to get you on the witness stand, man. You'd be in trouble. Oh my God. I'd like to cross-examine this witness, please. You're right. You're right about the way he operates. I will say this. The play I described, one of the, I could give it context. So they had a possession right before that. They missed a shot. The ball was basically going out of bounds. Franz Wagner ran, made an incredible save, and actually was very kind of a controversial play because he calls timeout as he's jumping into the air to go out of bounds. And so, you can't do that if you're in the air. Went back and saw the replay. Of course, the Magic announcers are saying, no, because foot's on the ground. And I'm going, wait a second. He started to form the word timeout as he was about to jump, but he didn't really officially make the timeout call till his foot was off the ground, and then he jumped out of bounds. They gave it to him. But anyway, my point being, when they got the ball back to Banchero on the inbounds, it was a short clock. So he had no choice but to do what he did. He wasn't going to get to the rim. They were loaded up back there in the paint. So he had to go into one-on-one mode. And the move he made was just absolutely beautiful. It was very Kobe Bryant-like, the way he kind of went, how Kobe used to do that thing where he'd do the fake spin, like he was going to go the opposite direction on a turnaround. And it was like a half spin and then came back the same direction. It was just enough. And Harrison Barnes really played it pretty well. It was basically hand-on-hand contest from about 19, 20 feet. It was a really tough shot. And it showed you, to me, Banchero's talent is just really special. You're right, though. He's young, and some of it's coaching. Some of it's the system. Some of it's the way they run. It's not all him. Sometimes you got to force guys to be put into situations where they're willing to do certain things offensively to make it easier for themselves. And most guys, if they're that good, they just want the ball. Give me the ball, man. I'll figure it out. Yeah. And that makes it harder for you. So we'll see going forward what happens. But I'm very enamored with Paolo Banchero's talent. And he's a complete player, man. He can shoot the three. He can beat you in the mid-range. He can post you. He's a good passer, rebounder. I think he's the real deal. So I'm not going to be quite as harsh as you.
And to his credit, there's not a lot of shooting on that roster, and so there's not a lot of spacing. He's less room to operate, But I agree with you. To me, this is the thing. I love his talents. I absolutely love his skill set, his footwork, his balance, everything about it. But how you leverage those talents, to me, is how you fully unlock it. And he's young. I think he'll get there. But it's the thing I think about. Lastly, I just want to mention.
Last thing I want to say, he's been back now, for. I don't even know how many games he's played. He's about 40% since he came back. He's clearly he's not found his rhythm yet. Now I think he's played enough games where it should start to be better than that now. Like most guys, you can understand it for like 5-7 games, whatever. He's past that point. So it's like more efficient nights need to start happening here because the guy, the beginning of the year was 50% before he got hurt. Last year, I think he shot 46% from the field. He's got to improve his three-point shooting. He's got to improve his efficiency here going forward because he's had enough time back where I think we can go get past the point of he was hurt. He's trying to find his rhythm again. We're past that point now. So let's see. Maybe, like I said, maybe this game and this game winner against that team, I think that would be an important kickstart for him. And if he and Wagner can start playing great together on the same night again, the Magic have a really good team. And I think you're going to start to see them winning some games here after the break.
Well, one huge X factor for them, and it's almost the opposite of what I'm talking about with Paolo Banchero, is Anthony Black, because I love what he does. His defense is incredible. His length is incredible. He has some playmaking to him. He has some stuff, but he can't score. His shooting is horrible. In this game, he goes 8 of 9, 3 of 3 from the 3-point line, and is a plus 22. If he was a reliable scorer and shooter, I think the guy would be a fringe star. That's how much I love everything else he does. But of course, he's not those things. But on a night when he does give you those things, he's a plus 22. So that's why I love him. I'm not confident he's going to become a scorer and a shooter, but I do think that if he were to, he would become an incredibly valuable player. All right, we got one super chat, Legs, before we get out of here. Let's see what we got. Psycho Blue. Oh, here we go. Psycho Blue's back. He says, Warriors came out to play. Hope the rest of the league is packed when they squeeze in the play-in. Warriors explored more than Dora and finally found the thing. They did it. They did it. Psycho Blue always brings it. No basketball Cthulhu this week, but he took us on a journey there.
He brings it, man. He's got the messaging going on. You got to dive in with him, man, to really get ready. I'll say this. Look, Golden State, you talk about the play-in, sneaking into the play-in. I mean, look, they are basically one game back in the loss column of the 8th spot right now. They're sitting at 11, so they've got some work to do. The teams in front of them, Phoenix, Sacramento, Dallas, right? Those are the 3 teams that you're looking at, right? The Clippers are kind of they're a couple more games ahead of that. So I don't know if that's realistic. So these are the teams you're going to be battling with: San Antonio, Phoenix, Sacramento, Dallas. That's the group of teams now that Golden State finds themselves in. And look, Dallas, they make the trade, they get AD. We're going to dive into it more on Wednesday on our show with AD, what happened to him the other night. But he's already out for a few weeks. And you don't have Luka. So you basically don't have anything to show for that trade for several weeks. That's really going to really cost them. Sacramento, we've got to see, they made a massive change to their team without De'Aaron Fox. What does that look like? They got question marks. Phoenix is a mess. They didn't trade Durant. At the game I called against Oklahoma City, man, they completely collapsed in the second half. They didn't look like they were super connected in that game at all, or they had any fight in them. I don't know what's going to happen to them. I think Golden State right now, of that group of teams, they got to feel pretty good about themselves. They added Jimmy Butler. I think it's rejuvenated their sense of hope for this season. And so I think they're in a fairly good spot here, man, as we go into the break. And I think Golden State's got a great chance to be in the play-in.
I think the end of the season, a regular season, is going to be incredible for what you said. The stakes are so high. Somebody's going to fall completely out of the play-in. That's a good team. And then how that shakes out, the play-in is just going to be insane. Good teams going up in a do-or-die situation will be great. We had one last super chat come in here, James. Jiawei Huang says, need to know, are the Blazers a real team? Talking about them tomorrow on the show. They're in Denver to take on the Nuggets, so I'll be watching that one. We'll have somebody on to talk Blazers and to kind of go deep, because I think they're one of the more fascinating teams that we haven't spent a lot of time on, and I'm excited to get into them. So tomorrow's show will be heavy on Blazers for sure. All right, cue that outro music, James. Don't forget, tomorrow night, me and Legs are going to be doing that playback.tv/all-NBA show. We are giving away a bunch of passes to League Pass, but you've got to sign up. So go there right now, playback.tv/all-NBA show. It's free to sign up. You do need to have a League Pass account. That's why we're giving so many out. But it's a really cool thing, and I think it's going to become kind of a core product for us. If everybody enjoys it the way I think you will, it could be a cool thing for us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was great to be back talking NBA. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
All silly like the mayor.